Well, I feel flash. We've got 3 camera angles and a Tuk Tuk. I mean, pretty much the whole YouTube game's clocked now. I don't need to make any more videos after this one. But Andrew's here. We've got a Tuk Tuk. It's not mine. I will not own this, but it's an awesome opportunity for me to get close with one. It's a Thai Tuk Tuk. Why does that matter? You may have seen a whole bunch of Tuk Tuks, say like in Indonesia and India and stuff like that. Those are generally Bajaj. B-A-J-A-J. And they make 2-stroke Tuk Tuks back in the day, and they're much smaller. And they also make diesel ones these days. They're just really small, like 350cc or so. This thing here is a 660cc, but it's got an interesting story. So this is it, basically. It's a Tuk Tuk that came into New Zealand in the late 80s. And it's got the typical things you see when a Tuk Tuk's come into a Western country. It's had a disc brake upgrade. It's got all the turn signals and lights, like these have been added aftermarket. Not really needed to be, but they have. Windscreen wiper. There's an aerial for the radio as well, which is not connected, but it's in there. And we've got it open at the moment and kind of going to show you what this thing's actually powered by and why it exists. I guess, what do I cover? How do I explain this? Tuk Tuks were made by Daihatsu back in the day. Daihatsu made a thing called a midget, and the first ever midget was built in 57, and in 1957 they looked kind of like a pickup truck, really. In 58 or 59 Thailand started making their own versions, and ever since they've made them. This one supposedly was first put together in the 70s, but we're not 100% sure. These are all just random numbers that we've found on them. There's no general like Tuk Tuk frame or chassis number that we've been able to find. There's been a frame number. Nice, that was a BZ Carib 4AGE. There was a New Zealand added frame number, which just happens when anything comes to New Zealand and gets put into our vehicle market, I guess you could say. Yeah. And there's also what we call a certification plate, so this thing's been modified along its time. So at the moment it has a 3-cylinder 657cc, which you probably can't see. Anyway, yeah, there you go, 657cc. And that is a kind of a mystery engine. Well, it was until last night when we figured out what it was. These things here came out with a 356cc twin-cylinder 2-stroke by Daihatsu, and this has been swapped sometime along its journey in New Zealand. Usually they use a Daihatsu 3-cylinder 4-stroke engine, but Andrew, what have they used?
This one's a Suzuki single overhead cam F6A.
Yes.
3-cylinder.
Absolutely, and you can see manual, you see a drive shaft coming out the back of the gearbox there, so it's a rear wheel drive box. And they did come in this configuration from the factory in Suzuki Carries. Suzuki Carries in New Zealand from the 90s, when this would have been around, well this engine's come from the 90s, or a 90s Super Carry. It would have generally been like a farm truck, or similar. They didn't really get the 660cc versions on the road very easily. So we've got our...
Just worked out what that is.
What?
It's a tyre rod end from a car.
Oh.
With that welded on it.
Yeah. So this is what we're here to show you. The dash, this has come from some kind of vehicle. We don't know what. None of this works. The fuel gauge goes to full, but the tank's not full. And the...
Water temp, also another water temp?
Yeah, but that one doesn't work. This one does.
Yeah.
Water temp gauge seems to be accurate, and it seems to be one of the only things that are working. It's got 151 kilometers on this odometer, but the last warrant of fitness check in New Zealand, which is like an MOT if you're from the UK, or just a general inspection check we have for legality reasons, that had a much higher reading than this, so I'm not really sure what's happening there.
The screws look new.
Yeah, it looks like...
everything else looks old.
Absolutely, it looks like something's happened along the way, but it's quite janky. A couple of things we noticed immediately. This here, this is the seatbelt mount for the driver. It's been certified to have seatbelts, but this has got a nylock nut on the back, and the nylock nut literally doesn't even have any threads going past the rubber bit, which is actually the whole point. So that's kind of just a real...
One that I saw.
Yeah, what's one?
Gear shift linkage is horrible,
yes.
But also it rubs on the main fuel line.
Yep.
Just all the time.
Yeah, and that's a...
Which is cable tied to the distributor.
Yeah, a large bird poo weld just rubbing over the top of it the whole time. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 welds between here and here, which is really not good.
The mount itself.
And the mount itself, which has welds on top of the metal. not really joining it together. We've got a giant carburetor here, so this is a Mikuni carburetor, and this thing does run. We should probably try start it. It might not, we'll see. We'll see what happens. The carburetor has had the choke deactivated.
Also reactivated.
And yeah, so it kind of exists, but this thing doesn't run nicely until it's warm. Look at our throttle cable there. It's snapped, or the sheath is broken. But the whole engine does have quite a bit of movement. Have you seen the throttle cable?
Yeah, hanging out.
Yeah, completely exposed. Running over the top of the radiator, going up through this tunnel here, up to our hand throttle. So, yeah, it's been epoxied. All right, well, we know it runs, so turn it off. There we go. So there you go. That's this thing running. Proof that it does go. But I'll run you through the controls and why this thing's a bit janky. The throttle's real stiff, so it gets quite sore to actually use this for more than 5 minutes. The front brake is here. So this is for the front disc brake, which is that one down there, which I've actually confirmed has the same front brake pads as a 2008 or 2009 Honda CBR 125. Right hand controls your throttle and front brake. Right foot controls your clutch. And this is your clutch mechanism down here. See all those springs running together? We've actually also repaired this because it wasn't working properly yesterday.
It was fully broken in half.
One side of this linkage here was snapped, and Andrew spotted that. Thanks, Andrew.
All good.
We're not actually going to use this as a passenger vehicle in its current state. It does need some work. So yeah, this is your clutch, right foot clutch. Left foot.
Very hard brake.
That's because the handbrake's on. Yeah, no, it's still the same hard. So you have a handbrake down there as well, but yeah, you're kind of occupied. What were you going to say?
The master cylinder is just hanging out underneath.
Yeah, it's not good. The master cylinder, that's it there, held on by that other bird poo weld. You can see the back of the flywheel is completely exposed because they haven't kind of got the dust cover on there. I believe this transmission and engine are one.
They live together.
They do live together. But yeah, you can see right underneath here, you've got a sump which looks like it's been shortened. It probably used to be quite a bit deeper, but it looks like it's been cut and rewelded to be a bit shorter there. Radiator fan's just hanging out and not attached to anything. The other thing we have here is your coolant overflow bottle. Coolant overflow bottle is quite literally just a brake fluid bottle from Supercheap Auto. This is literally that. It's the same, it's got the same yellow on the logo there, as you can kind of see. I guess the best way I can explain this thing is someone has genuinely put a lot of effort into it. Oh, yeah. It's just that the effort to complete this engine swap, which by my assumption, based on registration details and stuff like that, was probably done in the late 00s or early 2010s. Because this thing was put back on the road in 2012. Yeah, and it was off the road for about 9 years after it first came into the country in 1990, and it was used, 2003, off the road, 2012, back on the road. How's the engine mounted?
Good.
Yeah.
Down there, little bobbin mounts. Yeah, I mean they work. They're very basic.
Yeah.
You'll find the same on your side.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So you can see the same over here. You've just got this little engine mount down there, which is a little bit haggard, but you know, it does the job. A couple of things people do wonder about these straight away. Oh my gosh, what are you doing? The front wheel isn't round. Are the tyres not round? They're not meant to be. This is how they are in Thailand. Yeah. If it was round, this thing would definitely flip. At the moment, it's kind of this stable. Do you want to rock it back and forward? We'll get it on the big camera. Yeah, that stable. And I almost felt like I was going to flip it yesterday when I went up a bump. We've got 12-inch wheels on the back. So this is running a 165/70/12 FC rims, drum brakes on the rear. Your fuel tank's here. You might need some light. So that's your fuel tank there and your rear diff as opposed to the front diff, because of course it doesn't have one of those. But here's your diff, which doesn't look like it's been modified in any way. So that's come straight from some kind of small Daihatsu along the way. There's a new fuel filter up there, so it looks like that's been somewhat modified. The fuel cap literally just kind of sits there. The key doesn't mean anything. It does have the tail, so you've got the Thailand tail, and these latches do kind of open, but it's a bit stuck at the moment. This is literally just kind of attached onto the end of a normal pipe, which you can kind of maybe see inside there. But apart from that, there's not too much. Is there anything you think we've missed out? Oh,
The top, the lights, and roll bar.
yeah, okay. Roll bar. This roll bar has been added in New Zealand. They didn't have one of these from the factory. This has probably been a requirement to get it back on the road when that happened in 2012-ish or whatever it was. Yeah. And that's been created because there was supposedly an accident with a Tuk Tuk down in Wellington in New Zealand. And so ever since then they've needed roll bars. This wiring that looks horrible up here is this stuff up here. And obviously these three middle lights, 1, 2, 3, have had to be removed because the roll bar's in the way. We've got this here, which is just kind of your chrome tubing that makes the cover and the canopy. And under the rear seat, we have an attempted stereo system, which is somewhat broken. So there's a lot to be done on this. The engine is okay and it starts, but first gear's not great and it clunks when you let the clutch out, which is on the other side, not this side, quite badly, and also kind of shutters and jutters on takeoff. Little things like we're missing a screw there and missing a screw there. Just stuff kind of missing all over the show. But once again, someone's tried, they've put a lot of effort into it. So yeah, I guess this is a bit of a crude video, but it shows you the roof's not attached properly. Okay, we just discovered that as well. So yeah, lots of things, and it's missing a bolt there. Okay. So yeah, I did drive this here, but it really needs to be...
Needs someone who knows what they're doing to spend a little bit of time on it.
So in order to do that, would you say we probably need someone that knows these Suzuki F6A engines?
The engine seems to run fine.
Yes.
Once it's warm.
Yeah.
The choke mechanism has been cut off.
Yeah. So it would have had an automatic choke.
It possibly still does, but it just runs average.
Yes. There's that.
And
there
there's
as well.
yeah, things like this wire here has come off. Unsure what it does.
It's an earth for something.
Another one over here.
No earth there. This possibly was the old battery box, which has been relocated underneath, which is there now. So yeah, the battery box has been put there. Leaf springs in the rear.
Yeah.
These are drive shaft. Exhaust is just kind of an exhaust. It's almost a straight pipe with a little kind of Kobe hot dog style thing in the middle there. And yeah, there's not really much to it apart from that. Giant chassis, body's on top. It needs a bit of work. So we need to sort that out. Front end, both brakes, shocks, gearbox issues. Possibly, if it does stay manual, the owner wants to swap the brake and the clutch side. Whether that's feasible or possible, I've got no clue, but it would be pretty cool because it would just involve less thinking when you're driving. Sitting up in the driver's position, you do have a rear view mirror there and a rear view mirror there. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
kind of. But not, they don't really stay. And then this here, this little mechanism, is to make the windscreen wiper work, but it doesn't work. So we'll, yeah. So yeah, super lucky to have this thing in front of us here in New Zealand. It needs a ton of work. I hope we can turn the key on. I think only that one works. So I guess that's it. I don't really have much more to say apart from the fact that hopefully this looks cooler. Maybe by next summer, and if we're really, really lucky, maybe our good friend will let us take it a bit longer distance. Bye.